Hi, welcome to week 10 of teacher training. This week we're going to look at the art of teaching, and these are some tips and some guidelines for you guys. Some things to think about when you're in the classroom and you're working with your students and you're in a dynamic classroom setting. So first of all, before you begin class, ground yourself, get grounded, get prepared to teach class. There's nothing like walking into a class and being in your head about what you're going to do and how you're going to lead class, but not be in your body when you walk in there. So before you get into the classroom and say a word, connect with yourself. Give yourself a minute, even if you don't have a place to, you can't actually go into a room or something like that and close your eyes and do a little mini meditation. Stop for a minute. Just stop before you walk into that room. Take a slow, deep breath and remember the student-teacher prayer. Remember that you're there to serve those students, that you're there to connect with them and to be present with them and to guide them in a class that's going to serve them. So before you walk into the class, remember you are a light and a guide, and that you are coming together as a group for the purpose of yoga. So get all your stuff out of the way just in that moment of taking a breath and connecting with the purpose of teaching a class. And remember that your invocation, that your intent, that's an invocation. You're inviting in every teacher that's come before you, everyone that's ever inspired you up to this moment. You're inviting in that wisdom and the wisdom that's already in you to guide you in that class. So get grounded. All right. Next thing is be creative. Have fun with it. Check in with your students. If you're already in the classroom and classroom is started, you can put them in downward facing dog or something like that and say, hey, do I have any new students? If I got a new student, raise your leg. Or hey, I'm going to walk around and pass out adjustments. If there's anybody that doesn't want to be adjusted, kick a leg up. Something like that. Like, be playful with your students. Look for ways to connect with them and be playful with them, but also get some really valuable information before class gets going. All right. So the next thing is have a shell or a formula. Have a sequence. And that's what I've been saying to you all along. Learn the sequence. Have the Ashtanga sequence as a shell, as an outline, so that you don't have to think it's that, well, not that you don't have to think, but that it's there for you. You don't have to, there's nothing to make up. You can use this to build a class around. Sprinkle in a little bit of beginning, sprinkle in a little bit of the standing series, the balancing series, sprinkle in a little bit of the floor series, and in the closing series, and then bring them into Shavasana. So have a shell formula. This is a valuable tool to a new teacher. A sequence can, a flow or a sequence can help you build a balance, can help you with a balanced sequence. So we want to have a balanced class. This will also help you end class on time. If you work from a sequence that's set, it'll help you end class on time, because sometimes when we wing it or try to get too creative, in the process of being creative and winging it and just sort of going with it, we can get to a place where we're like, oh wow, I still haven't done any hips, I haven't done any inversions, but there's only 10 minutes left of class. And so now we can start to inch into their time. And a lot of your students, when they come to your class, maybe they're on their lunch break, or it's at the end of the day and they've still got to pick their kids up after class. And so you always want to end class on time. This is really important. If you want to build trust with your students, you're going to want to end class on time. But you're also going to want to know where you're going during the class. So have a formula, have a shell formula, and then build and modify it around that until you get more comfortable with building a sequence and teaching. All right, so the next thing is keep the momentum of energy flowing throughout the class. This means If you make a mistake, who cares? If you forget a side, who cares? Right, left, you say something that's not exactly what you meant to say, let it go and keep going. Don't get caught up in a mistake that you made so that the energy of the class, the momentum of the class drops. Keep the momentum of the class going. Keep them moving and keep them flowing in their practice. So remember, the goal is to get them to the finish line, which is Shavasana, to get them in that state of rest where they've dropped all their stuff by the end of class. So that's the most important thing. Saying it all right, remembering right and left side and getting that right, having the most creative flow. None of that's going to matter at the end if they're not in a restful state and they don't feel like they've accomplished something when they get to Shavasana. So have fun with them and keep the energy moving. Remember, it's never too late to recover a class. You can make a ton of mistakes. Your class can be a wreck all the way through. You can say all the wrong things, forget a side and all of that. But if you are able to recover just with a few words that they can connect with, or be present with them in some way that connects them to their practice, and they get into a space of Shavasana and drop into that, they are going to be happy. It's not going to matter that you forgot a side or something like that. All right, so the next thing is manage the energy in the room, but don't try to control it. All right, so sometimes when you're teaching a class, people are going to start crying. Sometimes you'll see tears, sometimes you'll see a little bit of agitation or nervous giggles or whatever. You can't control that. That's not your job to control that. It is not your job to fix anyone. You're not a therapist. You're there to guide them in practice. So at the same time, you want to be in charge of the room, but not in control of every single thing that's every single emotion or whatever that's going on in there. You're just not going to be able to. So manage the energy in the room, but don't try to control it. Leave room for them to have their own experience. It's not your job to fix anyone. If you notice someone is emotional with tears or exasperation or something like that, let them have their space. Maybe you talk to something around that gently, but just let them have their experience and know that it's okay, that they are resilient, and give them that space, give them that opportunity to process and have it. All right. Let them know that you are with them and for them with eye contact. When you're in a classroom with people, look around without making it awkward or weird. You don't want to hold someone's eye gaze for too long, but just don't be afraid to look at people when they're struggling. Look at them, acknowledge them from your own personal energy. Be there with them, and then let them have that space and move on. Let's see. Also, when you make eye contact with someone, when you face the classroom, it builds presence. They know that you're there. And this is super important. If you're afraid to look at people, you're not going to build a presence in the classroom, and which means it's going to be harder to connect with them and harder for them to trust you and drop into their own practice. They're going to be looking around and fumbling around if you're not grounded in your own and in your own body, showing them that you're with them and for them. All right, scan the class as you teach. Keep an eye on all your students. Look for people who are struggling. Look for ways to support your students. If you see someone struggling, give them some cues or some assist. You can even walk over to them, and sometimes saying something from across the room doesn't register. Sometimes you got to walk right up to their mat and let them know, like stand in front of them, mirror for them, or maybe just touch them in some way in a physical adjustment that's just very light but gives them that so the light bulb comes on. So let the students know that you see them. Let's see. Also, as you're moving around the room, use your, be intuitive. Look for how the pace and tempo of your class is landing for them. If they're able to keep up with the breath, if they look like they're doing more than you're teaching or less than you're teaching, that can be a cue that maybe you up the tempo or bring the tempo down and the pacing of asana and movement up and down the mat and from right and left side. Let's see, if you freeze while you're teaching, that's happened to me before. I've been in class, and I think we talked about this, and I've wanted to actually just like run right out of the classroom, just full on panic attack, having a moment of like, what is I don't even know what to say right now, right? And so if you freeze, if you just like have that moment of sheer panic or terror, put them in down dog or in child's pose and take a big breath, hold the breath. And sometimes that's all you need, is to take a few slow breaths to get recentered, to exhale out the tension, exhale out whatever is happening. If there's fear, if you just, everything is flown out of your head, or maybe you've even just forgotten something that you did on the right side and you're on the left side now and you're like, wait, what did I do? Sometimes just holding them in down dog or holding them in child's pose before you move to the next side, it'll come back to you. All right. Also, another way to support yourself if you're freezing, if you're just having a moment, like you're completely having an out-of-body experience. If you carry into the classroom like a stone, if you have like a stone or a mala, or even like a piece of wood is very grounding. Or you can do a hands-on adjustment. If your student is in child's pose, you can put people in child's pose or even in downward dog and come over and lay your hands on their hands. And just that connection can bring you back into your body and help to recenter your energy and ground you and all that stuff. All right, so the pose begins when you want to come out of it. The pose begins when you want to come out of it. As a teacher, you have to be the stillness for your students. You have to be able to withstand the fire, right? So what does that mean? Be okay with holding them in the pose. Be okay with that uncomfortable spot in the classroom, right? Because sometimes when postures get difficult or you see people fidgeting, there can be a desire to just let them out and roll right to the next side, or move them quickly, because when you move them a little slower, there's this open space, right? It's very etheric. This is like a spot where they can really have transformation, and we have to be a container for them. We have to be that safe space for them to have some self-observation. So don't be afraid to hold them in postures for a little bit longer. And don't be afraid of that space of feeling like you need to do something, that you need to move them or change something. Take a breath and be that space for them. And remember, the pose begins when you want to come out of it. And maybe even say that to the students. All right. When you praise or compliment your students, mean it. So sometimes we can get into a place where we're just making idle conversation, and compliments are a really easy way of idle conversation. Or say you're in class or after class, and when you give compliments, when you acknowledge someone, make sure that it's real, that it's true and sincere, because your students are going to feel that. They're going to know, they're going to sense your sincerity, and that's going to build rapport, and it's going to build trust and connection with them. So be sincere when you offer compliments. Be sincere when you're with your students. Okay. Being being both authentic and honest is your greatest asset as a teacher. So when you are authentic and honest, it gives it gives others permission to be authentic as well. And like you said, when we met you, Jenny, you were saying that Courtney walked into class to teach, and she was like, I feel nervous. And just her saying that, coming in and being authentic like that, it gave you permission to be real too. So when you're in class, your authenticity, your honesty is the greatest asset you have. Who you are and what you bring to the classroom, that is going to give your students permission to be who they are. It's going to give your students permission to shine. It's going to give your students permission to be compassionate with themselves. And you're going to build connection with your students through this, being authentic and honest. So that means if you don't know something, don't teach it. If you're not practicing it, if it's not something that you practice, don't bring it into the practice room. Because the students are going to sense that, and you want to keep them engaged and connected to the practice, which means we have to be true to ourselves, and as we share the yoga with them. All right. As a teacher, your presence, voice, touch, and your power, Manipura, that I am center, that the personal, that the power, who you are, what you bring to the world, what you bring to your relationships, what you bring to your art, all of that is presence. And and that also includes your body posture and your intellectual posture. So when you're with them, if it helps, spread your toes and on the mat when you're standing, or on the floor in the yoga room when you're standing, spread your toes, or bring your hand to your belly or your diaphragm, where that I am center is, and check in with yourself there as you're sharing with your students. Connect with the vibration of speaking, right? Let your voice be heard. Speak from this place right here, not from up here, so that your voice is like, from the throat up, but right here from your very center. Speak clearly, speak loudly so the entire room can hear you. But not forcefully, but loudly so they can hear you, and joyfully. All right, so let's see. Balance knowledge with intuition. Apply essential verbal cues that improve, perfect, and balance the alignment in the body and energy of your student. Talk to stacking joints to keep strain around the joints to a minimum. And so what does that mean? If someone's in a lunge and their knee's way over their ankle, sometimes it can place pressure on the knee. So talk to stacking so the knee is right over the ankle. Or talk to your chaturanga, right? Where the shoulders aren't dipping down, but the shoulders are in line with the elbows, right? And we're trying to bring the elbows even over the wrists. So talk to things like alignment. You can also talk to something like Utkatasana. A lot of times what I see is students are forward, their knees are forward over their toes. And so when that happens, they're in their shins, they're in their knees, and they're not really getting the full experience of chair pose or Utkatasana. So we want to bring their hips back right? And so now when we bring their hips back over the heel line, now their glutes are engaged, their inner thighs are engaged. There's less work around the shins and knees, and there's more engagement around the core. And then, so from there, yeah? So talk to things like that, cues like that. You can talk to their drishti, the gaze is forward or maybe up towards the thumb or something like that. Talk to verbal cues. So balance technical knowledge with intuition. So when you're teaching, you want to give verbal cues. You want to give cues, but you don't want your teaching to be nothing but cues. So you want to add in Dharma talk and your own experience, right? So then you can start talking to, truthfulness. You can talk to keeping your focus. You can talk to ahimsa, non-harming. You can talk about maintaining your center when you have a hard day. So balancing technical knowledge with intuition. Talk to stacking, talk to dharma, karma, talk to engaging your core and your navel lock, all of whatever you see. So as you look around, balance out the class with technical cues and then just connecting with them on a spiritual and an emotional level as well. All right, engage their mind as well as their body. So when energy needs shifting in a classroom, like there's a lot of nervous energy or scattered energy, sometimes you can get a feel for that. There's a lot of just nervous energy, like people are looking around or sort of falling all over the place. You've got like 5 people up in the front row and they're falling out of a tree pose or something like that. Whenever you have that nervous energy, longer holds, hold them for longer. If there's a lot of nervous energy, maybe take them out of balancing postures and bring them into downward dog or plank position or something like that. Get them into their center and burn off a little bit of that scattered nervous energy. So longer holds, or you can bring them all the way down to the floor for like frog pose or something like that, right? Maybe we don't want to put them in frog pose at the beginning of class. So if it were towards the beginning of the class when there were a lot of nervous energy, you could put them in Tadasana and talk to muscular activation in Tadasana. So you could bring them up to standing and say, all right, bring your toes and heels together and spread your toes wide. Root down into the bones of your feet and then lift up through the leg muscles of your thighs. Lift up through your abdominal wall. Pull your shoulders back. Extend your arms down. Reach your fingertips towards the earth. Bring your gaze straight forward and take a few deep breaths. So if it's right at the beginning of class, you could do something like that. You could start talking to that, or you could even do mountain pose with the arms extended as a first posture. If there's a lot of just weird nervous energy, you could do something like that. Extend their arms over their shoulders and have them hold their arms for like a minute or so. That'll get their attention. Or you could bring them into a downward dog. Hold them in downward dog for a minute or so. That will definitely get their attention as well. Or even into a plank position. You could start class in plank pose and hold them in plank pose for a minute, and that will definitely get their attention and get their energy grounded and centered. So ways to create, ways to balance out energy in the classroom. Longer holds will definitely help with that. Let's see. If it's towards the end of class, so that's towards the beginning of class. If it's more towards the ending of the class or somewhere around 3/4 of the class, you could start hold them in hip openers. That's a great way. And if it's more towards the middle of the class, you could do like lunges. You could hold them in some longer lunges, or hold them in half split pose or something like that. Put them in goddess pose and hold them in goddess pose. Or you could bring them into some core work, have them do some abdominal work, get rid of that nervous energy. All right, so let's see. And then the last and final thing is be gentle with yourself. That is the most important thing. Rule number one, first yama, ahimsa. Be gentle with yourself. Always be gentle with yourself. Because again, your students are going to pick up on that. And if you're gentle with yourself, you are giving them permission to be gentle with themselves. And we're all here doing the best that we can, and they're going to know that. Teach from your heart. Teach what you know. Be playful, be joyful. Remember, this is yoga and you love yoga. You're a yoga ambassador. And I'll talk to you all soon. I'll see you soon. There's going to be more to come for week 10 homework.